Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're jumping right into a pretty fascinating journey to uncover the true origins of electricity in Brazil. We're literally going to trace the exact path that water takes all the way from rushing rivers right into the outlets in your very own home.
So think about it for just a second. When you turn on the light in your living room, where does that energy actually come from? Honestly, it feels like everyday magic, right? We just flip a switch and boom, the whole room lights up, our computers power on, and, well, modern life just happens. But this really simple action is actually directly connected to the massive, imposing river systems that cross the entire country.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the number is honestly staggering. Over half, yes, more than 50% of all the energy generated in Brazil actually comes from these water-powered plants. That means the raw physical force of the rivers is the true engine sustaining the vast majority of our society. It's huge.
All right, let's move into Section 1, the origin of energy.
So, to really understand how this works in practice, we got to look at the basic physics of how moving water actually creates this massive amount of electricity. Just picture a familiar old-school wooden water wheel on a farm. That is exactly the fundamental principle at play here. Gravity, which creates potential energy as the water falls, combines with the actual speed of the current, that's the kinetic energy, and hits the blades. This spins the whole structure, converting that raw natural force into mechanical energy. So the key takeaway here is that nature provides the raw motion, and we just build the right mechanism to capture it.
Now, what's truly mind-blowing is that this brilliant hydraulic concept isn't some modern invention at all. Actually, scratch that, it's incredibly old. We can trace the use of waterfalls to produce energy in mills all the way back to the 1st century before the Common Era. It's a truly ancient technology. Modern engineering simply took this exact same concept and scaled it way, way up into today's gigantic hydroelectric plants.
Moving right along to Section 2, the path of water.
Let's move to and see how this builds into modern plant anatomy. These are incredibly complex structures that require rigorous technical viability studies approved by ANEEL, Brazil's electricity regulatory agency. So let's trace the actual step-by-step journey. Stage 1 is the dam that forms the reservoir, basically piling up water to create a big height difference. From there, this massive rush of water is captured and sent hurtling down through tunnels. Stage 2 is where the real magic happens, the turbines. Forcing that massive volume of water through a tight space creates absolute, absurd pressure, spinning the turbines incredibly fast. Then, in Stage 3, the generators kick in to convert this mechanical rotation into electricity. Finally, the water just returns right back to the riverbed and the energy moves to Stage 4, traveling out to the transmission grid and zooming across the entire country to reach you.
But hey, what about that classic scene? You know, you've probably seen those crazy videos online of a giant, spectacular waterfall shooting out of a dam's concrete structure. Well, that is actually called the spillway, and it's purely a safety feature. When super heavy rains fill the reservoir up to its absolute max capacity, the plant needs a way to release the excess water it simply can't process. So, that colossal waterfall you see isn't actually generating power. It's just letting the leftover water pass through safely so the dam doesn't overflow.
Which brings us to Section 3, with and without reservoirs.
It's really important to know that not every single hydroelectric plant requires a massive, landscape-altering lake to function. On one hand, yes, traditional plants absolutely need a giant reservoir dam to accumulate water and regulate flow throughout the whole year, especially during the dry seasons. But right on the flip side, we have what are known as run-of-river plants, or usinas a fio d'água. Instead of building a huge lake, these use the natural flow of the river current with only minimal reserves. This brilliant approach drastically reduces the need for large dams and significantly cuts down on the massive dimensions of flooded areas. And this brilliantly illustrates our next topic, Section 4, Giants of the Brazilian Landscape.
Honestly, it just goes to show how engineering adapts to geography. Now hold on to your seats for this number because it's wild. There are currently over 1,400 generating units spread across the Brazilian territory. Let that sink in. It is an absolutely monumental, totally interconnected network working round the clock to keep the lights on across continental proportions.
If you enjoyed discovering something new, consider subscribing to Explained Things. There's always something interesting waiting to be explained.
We look at the true behemoths leading this system in sheer capacity. We see Belo Monte on the Xingu River and Tucuruí on the Tocantins, both up there in the state of Pará. Then, over in Rondonia, João and Santo Antonio sit on the Madeira River, and both of those, interestingly enough, utilize that run-of-river concept we were just talking about. And, of course, we absolutely cannot forget the famous Itaipu on the Paraná River, which is a highly unique binational megastructure completely shared between Brazil and Paraguay.
Now let's transition to Section 5, Socio-Environmental Impacts.
Megaprojects of this size naturally generate debates that are just as massive as their structures, so it's really crucial that we examine the dual realities and trade-offs here neutrally. Looking at the undeniable benefits, as Aniel points out, the energy generated has a very low operational cost, and it's clean and renewable. These plants emit far fewer carbon emissions compared to other energy sources. This guarantees a continuous, steady generation of power that drives national growth, securing Brazil a really prominent position in the global energy transition.
However, we really must look carefully and respectfully at the other side of the coin, the profound socio-environmental costs. The creation of these large reservoirs permanently alters natural landscapes, flooding vast forests that are rich in flora and fauna. And the social consequences? They are equally profound. Rising waters force the displacement of indigenous, quilombola, and riverine communities. Entire towns, deep local roots, and literal pieces of human history are left forever submerged underwater.
So this all leaves us with a really fundamental question to ponder. As we demand more power and navigate this crucial energy transition, how will we balance the immense benefits of a clean, continuous grid with its profound and complex socio-environmental costs? The regulatory analysis makes it pretty clear. There are simply no easy answers for projects of this magnitude. So, the next time you turn on a light, I invite you to remember not just the raw, incredible force of the water, but the immense trade-offs involved in getting it there. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.